Most people who engage in addictive behaviors and go on to develop an actual addiction find that overcoming it is more challenging than they expected. Even though the difficulties people have with quitting drugs are well known, when people start using, they often feel either that addiction is a myth and they can quit anytime they want, or that they are an exception to the rule. This is even more true of non-substance or behavioral addictions involving activities such as excessive eating, sex, gambling, shopping, and exercise. What makes the situation even more complicated is that for every addictive behavior, there are some people who can engage in the behavior without developing an addiction. This is true of all the behavioral addictions, some of which involve healthy or necessary actions, like eating, exercise, and shopping, but also of substance use, including controlled drinking, recreational marijuana use, and even controlled heroin use. Most people think they are one of the lucky few who will not get hooked, and unfortunately, don't realize the truth until it is too late. By the time they recognize the need for change, they may not even want to. It can take years of being faced with the negative consequences of an addiction before realizing that it is causing significant problems. It is well known that addiction hijacks the brain. Even though addicts are aware of the negative consequences of continuing to use, they still do it. As the disease progresses, they will start to lie, steal, cheat, and worse anything to get their drug of choice. Eventually, they find themselves alone, with all their relationships in smoldering ruins and nowhere to turn for help. But is there hope when it comes to overcoming addiction? Can you ever get over it? If so, how? With comprehensive treatment that lasts long enough, it is possible. About 60% of those with lifetime substance use disorder do achieve a period of sustained abstinence eventually, according to several studies. The 3-year advantage to overcoming addiction. Your chances of staying clean and sober increase as time passes. An interesting study published in the December 2007 edition of Evaluation Review followed over 1,000 people for 8 years after their recovery. It demonstrated that the longer you are abstinent, the lower your chance of relapse. Here's how it breaks down. Approximately 36% of people in their first year of recovery will stay clean and sober. From 1 to 3 years, 2 out of 3, 66%, will sustain it. At 3 years, 86% will remain clean and sober. At 5 years, 86% will remain clean and sober. As you can see, the likelihood of staying clean and sober increases significantly over the first 3 years of sobriety and then stabilizes, according to the study. Sooner or later, most people who have an addiction decide a change needs to happen. Once the decision is made, most people have a specific goal in mind. It might be to quit entirely, to quit some addictive behaviors or substances, but not all, reduce the amount of time or money spent on addictive behaviors, or to reduce the harm of an addictive behavior. For example, many drug users decide to quit heroin or meth, but decide to continue to drink alcohol or smoke cigarettes or marijuana. Many heavy drinkers have the goal of just 1 drink a day or only drinking socially. Getting clear on your goal before putting it into practice is helpful for success in changing an addictive behavior. Although quitting entirely is the best path to wellness, reducing or eliminating the most harmful substance use is a huge improvement and will greatly reduce the harm caused. The same is true of behavioral addictions. Anyone who decides to quit eating entirely is heading for an eating disorder, although stopping overeating and embracing a healthy diet is a healthy decision to change. Complete abstinence from sex can be another form of sex addiction, known as sexual anorexia, yet developing healthy intimacy after a sex addiction can be greatly fulfilling. And reducing obsessive exercise to healthy levels is likely to improve health and wellness more than quitting exercise entirely. Making the decision to change and deciding what that change will look like is a process that often takes a while. This is known as the contemplation stage because it involves contemplating or thinking about whether to change and what the change should involve. Ambitious goals are not always best. It is better to set a goal that you will actually achieve than to plan to quit cold turkey and end up relapsing, which can be more dangerous than simply continuing without any changes. Consulting a doctor, addiction counselor, or psychologist is particularly helpful at this stage, as these professionals can help you understand the risks and what can help alleviate them. Once you are clear on your goal, you may still need to prepare to change. Preparations include removing both addictive substances from your home and triggers in your life that may make you more likely to use those substances again. People addicted to sex might need to dispose of porn and clear porn websites from their online history and favorites. Overeaters might need to go through their food cupboards and get rid of stockpiles of candy and cookies. Shopaholics and problem gamblers might need to cut up their credit cards and arrange with their bank to have just enough cash to cover bills and living expenses. Perhaps the hardest preparations to make concern social relationships, which often revolve around addictive behaviors for people with addictions. Suddenly quitting an addictive behavior can be lonely, especially if you have lost touch with people who don't indulge in the same behaviors. Heavy drinkers often find joining a self-help group, such as AA, helpful for having a group of buddies who understand what they are going through. This timing dovetails with the stages of recovery. It's at about the 3-year mark that those in recovery make the switch from repairing the damage caused by addiction, relationships, career, self-esteem and finances, to the growth stage, which is lifelong. The growth stage is about developing skills that individuals may have never learned and that predisposed them to addiction. While the repair stage was about catching up, the growth stage is about moving forward. There is also a financial benefit to recovering from addiction, which also appears to reach a significant milestone at 3 years of sobriety. The 8-year study on addicts in recovery found that at 1 year, there was a significant increase in number of days worked and a decrease in days they experienced financial problems. After 3 years of abstinence, there were significant reductions in the percentage of families who were living below the poverty line, which the study's authors concluded showed gains in financial status. Why does this happen? 2 reasons. The illegal activity associated with drug use stops and legitimate income earning begins. Over time, these gains add up to a much improved financial position. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. All of this also illustrates why, when it comes to gauging addiction treatment success, we should take a longer view. Rather than looking at sobriety at 90 or 120 days, is the person still clean and sober at 1, 2 and 3 years out? Most importantly, how do we get people to the 3-year mark, where they will achieve maximum chance of maintaining their newfound sobriety? Take time to contact friends and family who will support you in your goals without being judgmental if times become hard and you slip up. You might also want to let those friends you drink, use drugs, or engage in addictive behaviors with know that you are planning to change. They may not understand or you may be pleasantly surprised. Either way, it's a good idea to let them know of your goal and what they can do to support it, even if it means taking a break from the friendship. For alcohol and drug addictions, it is a good idea to talk to your doctor or local drug clinic about whether you need medical help in quitting. There are many more options for medications to help alleviate withdrawal symptoms these days, and if you have an underlying mental health problem, such as anxiety or depression, you could find it feels worse during the withdrawal phase. Typically, doctors and drug clinics are very supportive and enthusiastic about giving you the help you need, so don't hesitate to reach out. Quitting an addictive behavior. Quitting is a different experience for everyone. Some find the process liberating and empowering and feel they can achieve anything. Others find it painful, difficult, and frustrating, sometimes needing many failed attempts before achieving their goal. Still others discover new sides to themselves during the quitting process, a greater capacity for compassion, for example. There is no right way to feel while you are quitting. But if you are feeling depressed or find yourself constantly wanting to return to the addictive behavior, you should seek support and treatment from your doctor. Getting treatment to overcome an addiction. There are many different treatments that can help you during the process of overcoming an addiction, including medical and psychological treatments. There is no one right type of treatment, although some approaches are better supported by research than others. Approaches like cognitive behavior therapy, CBT, help many, and research shows it to be very effective in helping people overcome all kinds of addictions. But CBT is not for everyone, and other approaches may be better suited for those who do not relate well to analyzing their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Mindfulness-based approaches have recently become much more popular and can be easier to relate to for many people. As with CBT, mindfulness is helpful for people with underlying mental health problems, such as anxiety or depression. A variety of other treatments can be helpful, including couples counseling, family therapy, and neurotherapy. Medications can sometimes be helpful in the short term or the long term. Talk to your doctor about the options that are available to and appropriate for you. If you or a loved one are struggling with substance use or addiction, contact the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA, National Helpline at 1-800-662-4357 for information on support and treatment facilities in your area. What is the most effective treatment for overcoming addiction? The most effective treatment for addiction is, in a few words, long-term and comprehensive. Addiction treatment must address every aspect of a recovering addict's life, including navigating a successful re-entry into the real world. Ongoing support is also needed for those critical first 3 years and beyond. Long-term treatment for overcoming addiction. Most people outside the field of addiction recovery tend to think of the detox process when they think about treating an addiction. In reality, this is only the beginning. Detoxification is the physical withdrawal from your drug of choice. There is an acute phase, with the most serious physical symptoms. Then comes the post-acute phase, where you are out of the danger zone physically, yet still do not feel great, and are perhaps experiencing some mental anguish as well. Both these stages can sometimes hamper recovery, as addicts run from the pain and uneasiness back into the quick escape of drugs or alcohol. As uncomfortable as withdrawal is, though, it's still the, relatively, easy part. It's the underlying issues that drove you to start using, as well as changes to the brain, that are longer lasting and more difficult to recover from. For example, changes to the brain brought on by addiction can persist for months, perhaps even years, after drug or alcohol use is completely stopped. This does not mean long-term addiction treatment has to be of the same intensity over the course of the disease, however. You can gradually step down through less intensive levels of care as you gain momentum in your recovery. The final stage of outpatient treatment, for example, involves 1 to 3 hours of treatment per week, working the timing around the rest of your life. Comprehensive treatment for overcoming addiction. Establishing a firm foundation in everyday life is so critical for recovering addicts. Why? Because failure to do so can lead to relapse. You can't be in a hurry when it comes to addiction recovery. And you can't approach it with half of a solution. Holistic recovery programs are all-encompassing, aiming to rebuild every area of an addict's life. From growing stronger physically and establishing healthy coping strategies to forging a spiritual foundation, new social system and way of life, recovery must be an all-in proposition. As previously mentioned, after detox, recovering addicts move through progressively less intensive levels of care. Each level is designed to address underlying issues and conditions and equip them with the knowledge and practical means by which to maintain their recovery. As their level of care decreases, their involvement with the outside world increases. This allows for a gradual reintegration into the real world. The best addiction treatment centers facilitate this re-entry in multiple ways. They offer continuing outpatient treatment with flexible time frames, as well as referrals to sober living facilities for extended stays, assistance with finding employment, and alumni groups that provide active support. What helps you stay clean and sober? The tools you develop in treatment, as well as everything you do in life, plays a big role in whether and how long you will stay clean and sober. The following factors have been shown to assist in the maintenance of sobriety. A reduced risk environment. Increased self-confidence or self-efficacy, the belief that you are able to successfully deal with life's situations and challenges. Spiritual support. Social support. Increasing your number of clean and sober friends. Ongoing mental health treatment. Involvement in a 12-step program. Helping others. These factors are addressed through the levels of care, as well as with aftercare support. Reducing environmental risk. Our environment has a great influence on us. Neighborhoods with higher levels of crime and drug use, for example, serve as a breeding ground for even more drug use and crime, as a result of the perception that residents are indifferent to it. Beginning treatment requires total removal from your current environment. You will stay removed from this environment for the course of your treatment. However, if, after treatment, you go back into the same environment from which you came, it can trigger relapse. Here's where a sober living home can fill the void. Living surrounded by others who are sober and clean can help you stay sober and clean as well. Overcoming addiction through increasing self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is really self-confidence, or a belief in your ability to successfully handle life's challenges. When it comes to drug and alcohol use, those who are highly confident that they can stay sober and clean are more likely to successfully complete treatment and maintain their sobriety. How do you develop more self-efficacy? Building strong coping skills through cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and then successfully bringing those to bear in everyday life is the best way to shore up belief in yourself. In fact, a 2005 study identified coping skills as central to relapse prevention. Coping skills involve building communication, social and problem-solving skills. Each time you use these newfound skills in life instead of turning to drugs and alcohol, you have a mastery experience. In turn, each mastery experience builds your belief in yourself as someone who can successfully cope without illicit substances. Spiritual support in overcoming addiction. There is scientifically supported evidence that faith and spirituality are protective factors against relapse. In a 2008 study, individuals who maintained their recovery had significantly greater levels of faith and spirituality as compared to those who relapsed. Another study published in 2015 showed that those who reported that they felt God's presence on a daily basis and believed in a higher power as a universal spirit also had better outcomes than those who did not. Several studies have shown a relationship between having faith or spirituality and sobriety length. Addicts also said that faith was an important component of their recovery efforts and helpful in maintaining changes made during treatment. On a general level, higher levels of religiosity and spirituality have been associated with greater physical and mental health, as shown in many studies. Coping with withdrawal symptoms. Withdrawal symptoms can be a difficult aspect of overcoming addiction, both for substance and behavioral addictions. With substance addictions, the physiological aspects of withdrawal can be extremely uncomfortable, feeling like a bad flu, or can even be life-threatening. For this reason, it is a good idea to talk to a doctor about the best way and the best place to quit a substance such as alcohol, painkillers, benzodiazepines, and other prescription drugs, meth, speed, and heroin. Fortunately, most of the acute symptoms of withdrawal pass within a week or two of quitting, although you should take special care not to take your old dosage if you have been through withdrawal. The risk of dying from an overdose is extremely high if you have been through withdrawal, as your tolerance of the drug will be much lower than it was before you quit. Make sure you have someone with you if you decide to use again. However, a proportion of people who quit an addiction find that certain withdrawal symptoms seem to go on and on. This is known as post-acute withdrawal syndrome, and it can go on for weeks, months, or even years in some cases. In addition, addictions can sometimes mask underlying mental health problems, such as anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, and even psychosis, and drugs and alcohol can also induce these problems. If you are finding you are feeling blue or agitated, or that you are concerned that the world or other people seem strange or upsetting since you quit, talk with your doctor. There are effective treatments for these problems that are much more effective than addictive substances and behaviors. Social support. Although you may find yourself stranded during active addiction, you are not an island. We were built to be in relationship with others. You need support from other people in order to maintain your sobriety. This includes good relationships with family, friends, co-workers, employer and/or employees, the entire constellation of people whom your life touches. That's why it's a good idea to look for a treatment program that incorporates your family members. Good relationships with your family help make treatment more effective and protects you against relapse. If you are blessed to have supportive, cohesive relationships with your family members when you enter treatment, for example, you are less likely to experience drug problems, as well as family and mental health problems 3 months later, according to research. Increasing the number of your sober or clean friends, just like good family relationships, bolster your chance of successful addiction treatment. Good peer relationships help you recover and stay sober. It works the other way as well. If your friends do drugs, you are more likely to do drugs. The more of those negative ties that you maintain, the more you sink your chance for a successful recovery. Ongoing mental health treatment. About half of people who experience a mental health condition will develop substance use disorder as well, according to the National Institute on Drug Abuse. Mental health conditions will be uncovered and treated as a part of your program at a qualified addiction treatment center. Of course, these conditions don't magically disappear once addiction treatment is complete. In fact, one study showed that problems with mental health peaked in the 1 to 3 year period following the sober clean date. After that, these problems decreased. This further illustrates the need for ongoing mental health issue treatment and overcoming addiction. You'll feel happier, more well-adjusted, and you will be protecting yourself from relapse. Involvement in a 12-step program. Many studies have shown that participating in Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous improve the likelihood of staying sober and clean. AA and NA also improve participants' belief in the ability to meet life's challenges, another protective factor against relapse. Finally, participation improves social functioning, which aids in building a social network and increasing your number of friends who are also clean and sober, other protective factors. In addition, when you combine 12-step involvement with professional treatment, the outcomes are even better. Helping others. The act of helping other people helps you, too. A host of benefits from lessened anxiety and depression, improved mood, enhanced life purpose, better physical function and increased self-esteem and longevity come when you reach out a helping hand to a fellow human. Those benefits more than double when you are helping someone who has the same chronic disease that you do, according to a 1999 study. When it comes to alcoholism, a 2004 study found that those who were in treatment for the disease and helped others were twice as likely to be sober at 1 year out versus those that did not. Alcoholics with over 20 years sober were found to be significantly more helpful overall than they had been while drinking, according to research. This helpfulness spilled over into every setting including work, home and 12-step meetings. However, those recovering alcoholics pointed to helping other alcoholics in a 12-step program as the most significant and highest overall contributor to their contributed sobriety. They said it contributed a lot to helping themselves stay sober more so than helping in other settings which they rated as contributing very little. Interestingly, a 2007 study found alcoholics to be more likely to have antisocial personality disorder, ASPD, yet those who had recovered and sustained long-term sobriety no longer met the criteria. Moving from being self-focused to focused on helping others, called response shift, may be the reason for this stunning transformation. Recovery is possible. Overcoming addiction and getting back into society are processes. Maintaining sobriety is a lifelong endeavor. The key here is to have patience and manage expectations. Things don't immediately fall into place once you put down the bottle, the needle or the pills, but it will happen. The evidence shows that the longer you are sober, the more likely you are to remain that way. Nearly 9 out of 10 of those with just 3 years sober do just that. Stress will rear its ugly head again, it does for all of us. But, with the right treatment and armed with the right tools, those in recovery will be able to withstand all of life's challenges. Avoiding relapse. No one who puts in the effort to cut down or quit an addictive behavior wants to fail, yet relapse is more common than overcoming an addiction on the first try. This does not mean you will fail, it simply means that it might take a few goes for you to get it right. One of the most common reasons for relapse is cravings. Cravings are strong urges to use or engage in the addictive behavior, and they are common during withdrawal. But they can also creep up suddenly, and sometimes unexpectedly, weeks, months, or years after quitting. Although they can feel intense, you can learn to cope with cravings without giving into them. Another common cause of relapse is thinking you have control now, and one drink, drug use, binge, or whatever won't matter. Well, it might and it might not. Sometimes a relapse is a single drink or use, and you might find you don't even enjoy it anymore, or it could be a slippery slope to using regularly or excessively again. It could even mean overdose or death. Coping with relapse. It is important not to see relapse as a failure. The first thing to do when you realize you have relapsed is to understand what happened. Understanding why you relapsed is often one of the most important parts of truly overcoming an addiction. You can then apply what you learned from the first time you quit or cut down to be more successful next time. Avoiding replacement addictive behaviors. Some people find that when they quit or change an addictive behavior, another comes along to replace it. Heavy drinkers and smokers often find themselves overeating and putting on weight. People struggling with sex addiction might find themselves obsessed with exercise. Because addictive behaviors have similar neurological and psychological processes and create rewarding feelings and sensations, replacement addictive behaviors are common among those trying to overcome an addiction. The trick to avoiding replacement addictions is to find satisfaction in the experiences of normal life. These experiences may lack the intensity and high of addictive behaviors, but getting to know and like them can introduce a new level of calm you may have never experienced before. And many people feel they are more in touch with reality, and that relationships are more authentic than when they were constantly seeking pleasure. The other important aspect of avoiding replacement addictions is to address any underlying mental health problems. Addictions can cover up past trauma or underlying feelings of emptiness, sadness, or fear. Psychological therapies, as well as medications, can provide long-term relief for these problems, which addictions tend to worsen over time. Changes in relationships and friendships. Your relationships and friendships are likely to change as you overcome your addiction. As they will no longer revolve around the addictive behavior, it may take time to appreciate a new normal. You may also be touched by the loyalty and simplicity of those who live life without pursuing a high. You may find that friends and family whom you could not get along with while you were embroiled in your addiction welcome you back into their lives.